Hi folks, welcome to the second in my Tainted Grail Organization series. I have a link up above to the first in the series that talks about organizing the base game box. This video will cover what happens when you're finished with the Fall of Avalon and want to swap in one of the other two stretch goal campaigns or the Red Death campaign into the base game box so that you only have to bring out one box when you're playing and not have to unload everything. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be loading in the Last Night campaign into my base game box and putting the Age of Avalon components that I'm not going to be needing anymore into this box that contains Last Night and Age of Legends. For the purposes of this video, I have already unshrinked some things, but everything is more or less still in the same place it was when I got this backup box. So first we're going to go do a quick tour of what we're going to need to pull out of here for the Last Night. So the characters that you need for Last Night are these four. There are still one in each of the four player colors that will correspond to the player boards that these fit into. So you will need these four. Obviously the Last Night save sheet, and then I'm going to set aside the four characters for Age of Legends. I'll show you who they are in case you're pulling that one out instead, and the Age of Legends save sheet. I'm going to put that in the box lid for now. There's also an exploration journal, one for the Last Night, which I will be keeping in my pile to add, and one for Age of Legends, which I will be setting aside. When I filmed the previous, I had already tucked the letters into the exploration journals for the different scenarios. So going back to that really briefly, so obviously you'll need the four letters for the four characters for the campaign that you're loading. And then for Neve, there's going to be two letters for her, and the way to tell which one goes where is if you scan quickly the Last Night ones, you'll see that the last paragraph ends with a snowstorm, and if you find the Neve letter that ends with a snowstorm, that is going to be the one that goes with Last Night, and then the other ones can go into the Age of Legends expansion book for when you get there. In the card trays, first of all, the easy one is the map cards. I've left Age of Legends in shrink, and there's this card on the one side that says, the title up at the top, so the help card. So obviously, for Last Night, we're going to need these map cards. And then for the small cards, there are secret card decks. And the secret card deck that has 100 on the front of it is for Age of Legends, based on the component lists in the rulebook. And the one for Last Night is the one that has a 98 on the front of it. So I'm going to set this one aside, put this one back. It does say that you can just put all of the secret cards in numerical order, which may mean that some of the base game secrets are still going to be used in these other campaigns. There's not really enough space in the base game box if we put all of these in numerical order. So as your secret deck grows, creativity will be required. Then you're going to need the two decks that are in this spot here. One of them has a blue encounter on one side and the combat deck on the other side. You will need that for Last Night. And this one, which has a blue encounter on one side of the shrink and the beggar's encounter on the other side of the shrink, you will need that for Last Night. And I'll get to more detail about what's in those in a moment, but I'm just pulling stuff out of this box first. Then this thing back here, there were two decks in shrink, and you will need these two. This is Special Encounter G through Stubbornness, Dagon's card Stubbornness, and then the other deck has the Chapter 1 setup, and it goes through Special A on the back. So those are the cards that you will need for Last Night. Also, the donkey pack is here, so if you're playing with the donkey, you may want to pull those back into your base game box. These four shrink-wrapped cards and this shrink-wrapped deck of secret cards and these map tiles are all for Age of Legends, so if you're playing that one second, you can just leave those. I'm leaving them in shrink even just to remind myself I don't need them. Then you will need to pull, I've already pulled my donkey and put it into my base game. You will need the figures for the 4 characters. I'm not going to pull those out right now. I'll show those in a second. But note that there's this space down here below which holds the character cards that you're not using. And there is enough space for 9 of these to stack. So I'm going to put my Age of Legends ones in there, and we'll come back and we'll put the base game ones in here, and then if you're not playing with Neve, she'll also fit in here with the minis on the top. So let's take a moment and talk about what it is we need to remove from the base game box for the Fall of Avalon campaign, and that is going to then go up into our backup storage. So the rule book we'll need to keep in the base game box. I'm going to set that aside to replace. We'll also need to keep our status sheet and possibly our map. I haven't seen whether or not we need that. From our first campaign, we're going to need this information to load in last night. We are no longer going to need the save sheet pad for Fall of Avalon. We don't need the letters for Fall of Avalon, so the 5 letters, including Neve, if you have her. And I'm just going to tuck those inside the Fall of Avalon exploration journal, which we can set aside and not need. The Almanac of Avalon, if you have that, I have kept my extra maps tucked inside the front of this book, and I'm going to keep this in my base game box. Not sure if I'll need it or not. And then on the character sheets, where's my notch? There it is. You're going to need the board itself, but you will no longer need the character cards. So I'm going to pull the character cards for the 4 colors out of the character sheets, and then set aside these trays for later for reloading the other campaign. So working my way around the box, we'll leave the dice. All of these large map cards can come out. You're going to want to save your combat diplomacy overview cards, your order of the day cards, and then these icon glossary player aid cards, but everything from Kunacht back to the back can go away. These are just for Fall of Avalon, so I'll set those aside. Then these enhancement cards, I don't remember what they're called, these will stay. Our secret cards will stay. Our item cards will stay. Then over here in this, I have my events and my You Are Dying, Going Insane cards. All of those You Are Dying and You Are Going Insane cards can stay. And I think the only thing you're taking out is the special events, and I appear to have already taken them out. So these are all random events. These are going to go stay in there. And then in this corner, I have my little box with the red cubes and purple cubes and dials and things that I use during gameplay. So those all stay. And then here, I have separated out, in this little corner, in that little extra spot where the initial scenario was, I've put my donkey pack. So that is going to stay for future games. And then in this card row, I have all of my character cards. So let's pause and talk about separating those out. So for each of the characters, you're going to have 2 decks, and these will probably still be sort of mishmashed together from your play of the last campaign, but this is how you're going to need to get them separated out. So using Ailey as an example again, we're going to have her 1 through 15 cards that say Ailey on the top, and we're going to have those for combat and for diplomacy. These 2 decks, the 1 through 15 with the character names for each of the 4 characters, these are going to come out of your base game box and get set aside. But you're going to need to keep in the base game box the 1 through 25 of 25, so the 1 through 15 being your starter deck, and then the 16 through 25 being for the enhancement or the advancement pool for each of the player colors. So again, note the green stripe, the green banner on the starter cards, etc. So for green, blue, gray, and brown, you're going to need to keep these 1 through 25s of combat and Diplomacy in this box to then mix with the new character decks from the new campaign. So in this box, I have my 1 through 25 decks. All the ones that I need to keep are all back here behind the divider. And then here I have my the rest of my character cards from the base campaign. So all of these ones are going to come out. My Neve cards, I haven't played with her yet, so she's still in shrink. I'm kind of using her as a divider right now, so I'm going to leave her in for now, but if you know who you're playing with or not, you can pull out that set of character cards for her. And then finally, in here, we have our encounter decks. And the encounter decks are, I'm going to come back to these in a second because you're going to need to actually look through the rule book for the campaign you're loading to figure out which ones of these you're going to need from the base game. And then I normally have kept my encounter things here, but for the purposes of this video, I'd sort of set them aside here. All of these, your chapters and the encounters for the chapters, and then the special encounters, all of these things are related to Fall of Avalon and can be removed from the box. And then finally, for the minis, you're going to want to take out your 4 base game characters. Adding the last night cards to the base game box, we're going to have our location cards with the help card on top. So I'm going to move my saved location card over here, and I'm just going to slide those back into that map card space. Looks like I need to remove all my helper cards over to the other small area. So those will go in there. So if you haven't already done so, from those lists of cards, you're going to want to take the 1 through 15 of 15 combat and diplomacy for each of the characters, the ones with the character names on top, and separate those out. So this is green, so this replaces Ailey from the base game, and the combat and diplomacy for that character, I'm just going to leave them here until we decide which characters we're playing in this next campaign. But of course, eventually these are going to get mixed with 16 through 25 of the appropriate color of these cards to create the advancement pool. I have my little advancement pool separator cards all up here at the front of this card row. So once we've determined which characters we're going to play, we're going to set up those advancement pools following the normal rules. Moving on to setting up your encounter decks. This is a good time to point out that the first few pages of the exploration journal are spoiler free, so if you open it from the front, you are safe. You're going to have your component list in here. You're going to have a little intro text that you can read before or after. And then you're going to have special rules for the scenario that you're going to want to review. And the thing that I want to point out to you is on page, well, the pages aren't numbered, but on this page here with World Setup, this specifies which encounters are going to be necessary to incorporate with the last night encounters, which are the ones with the little helmet on, to create your encounter decks for this scenario. So following this schematic, I'm going to put together the encounter decks. So when I'm done, I will have the 15 gray encounters indicated here, 17 gray encounters from last night, and then I have organized them by their difficulty level so that I can put them in the box and easily see what to pull out. And I'll do this for all of the different encounter colors. Point out a small typo here. These are all listed as difficulty 3 green encounters, but actually the Weird Hogs and the Fae are actually level 4, so they are not found in the level 3 set. And for now, until we've decided who we're going to play, I'm going to set these character named cards in these 2 save slots here. That's my metal dials. I keep moving that little baggie around. So I'm just going to put these aside here, and eventually these cards here will get incorporated with these cards here, as mentioned before. And then my my chapter cards will go in the left-hand side here, because I'm used to pulling my next chapter cards that I need from the far left side of this slot. And then I will put my encounter cards with the difficulty level tabs readable if I slide this down that way. And actually, I'm going to move Neve to just fill that up a little bit more. And then I sometimes use my metal dial bag as a divider as well. So that is how I'm going to get this in. This will shift around a little bit once we've started playing, because we'll be using these save slots for the characters we're actually using, but we can put the rest of the unused character cards over here because the advancement cards will be over here, etc. And then this I've just shaved off the top of some card sleeves, so this is my empty card sleeves storage for the moment. So finally we're going to want to collate our secret cards. So the deck that came that has 98 is actually in reverse numerical order. I have swapped them all, so that now goes at the back and one is on top. So these are now in numerical order, and I will collate them with the base game numerical order secret cards until I have one deck in numerical order. So when it's done, it will look like this. Reminder that there's not a card for every number, and there are duplicates of some numbers, so you will just have, it will be the cards that it is in numerical order. And they do just still fit into that card slot. So as I said, if you are incorporating all of the cards from both campaigns into the secret deck, you're going to need to figure out these slots in such a way that you can use 2 of them for secret cards, because they're not all going to fit in this slot once you put the Age of Legends cards in with them. So speaking of this little slot here, you'll note that I had minis in there, and that is really going to be necessary to get the last night minis into the base game box. So a few of them fit into the existing slots. So you can put Sloan here where Maggot used to be, in that slot. He fits very nicely. And then in this slot, the old RF slot, you can put either Dragon or Mobbed. For her, you're going to need to sort of put her staff down first and then sort of just tilt her so the harp is in. But either of these 2 fit into that slot. And then if you're keeping Neve in the base game box, she fits in where Bayor was, but nothing really fits in this slot, which means you're going to have to use another section. Note that this space here between these 2 menhirs, if you don't have painted minis and you're okay with them just piling on top, you can fit this long spear lady across here. This is where I've been storing Neve before. But if you don't really want to get in the way of your menhirs, especially if you're not playing with her, you can put her in here, and then all 3 of these minis, including the donkey, will fit into this little slot there. Again, the characters that you're not playing with, you might want to store in your backup box. So then you're going to want to put your character sheets into the appropriate character board, and I'm going to put them start upside up for now. So blue into blue, green into green, etc. Remembering brown and gray, sometimes a little difficult to determine, but if you hold them up next to the boards, it's pretty easy to see which one matches. And then those are all in, ready to choose your characters for the new campaign, and those will go into this slot in the box. Before you begin your campaign, note this section in the Advent Explorer Journal for last night that indicates, based on your save sheet from Fall of Avalon, what statuses you should mark off on a save sheet for last night. So you're going to want to go through this and make the appropriate marks before you begin your campaign. So into the top of your base game box, you're going to want, I'm going to put my almanac in there, your rule book, your last night exploration journal, your prepared save sheet from having transferred any statuses, and the save sheet pad if you want, and then your starting letters for each of the characters. And that is everything you'll need to put into the base game box to prep it for a new campaign. And last but not least, you're going to want to put all of your Fall of Avalon materials into your backup storage box, aka for storage. So you're going to take your character sheets. I have Neve in here as well. Obviously, if you're playing with her, she'll be in the other box. That will go in there. The minis I am not using. These are the ones for Age of Legends. Will go there. And then I have my base game minis. This is a little challenging as usual. Maggot will go nicely upside down. Actually, he goes here upside down. And then you'll be able to put Ailey down over here in the corner. You can put Bayor in where Sloane was, and Arev kind of sort of almost fits right here. His scythe is resting on the edge, but close enough for my purposes to be able to put the lid back on. So putting the Fall of Avalon cards into our backup storage box, we have our map cards in here. We're going to have all of our event and chapter cards in here, and then the encounter deck I'm actually splitting in two, so I have green and gray and some of my purples in this spot here, as many as fit, and the remaining purples and blues I'm going to put in here with the map cards. This spot up here is going to be completely full with all of your character deck cards. So that is all of the card decks from Fall of Avalon now stored in your backup box. Then on top of this, I'm going to put my exploration journal from Fall of Avalon, and inside the front cover, I'm going to put my letters, my save sheet pad, and then my save sheets from my previous campaigns, just to hold on to those. And then also the Age of Legends exploration journal is going to go in here with its save sheets and letters as just a little bit of space on top of the plastic lid here in the backup box. So if you have any sort of extra, I'm using the metal dials now, so I have my plastic dials. I have extra cubes that don't fit in my little box. I have extra health markers that I'm not using because I'm not playing with full player count. Stuff like that can go here on top, but there's not really space to put minis or any other random things on top of this, but there's a little bit of extra space for odds and ends. And that is everything to swap out and put things in your backup storage and prep your base game box for playing a new campaign. Enjoy!